Hey everyone, I'm your host Locke Vincent and welcome to Gaming Alchemy, the show where I take a game and break it down into other titles that influenced it. Today I'm going to try and break down Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, which was just released by Capcom for the Nintendo Wii U and 3DS. Now this has been out for a while in Japan, but the West is always slow to pick up on Monster Hunter. They're not nearly as popular over here as they are across the ocean, but there is a dedicated audience that are pretty obsessive about monster hunting. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is the gold version of Monster Hunter Tri, the last Monster Hunter title that came out on the Wii. It contains every weapon in the franchise, so you're going to have access to all 12 weapon types. It also totes the largest monster list yet, and even includes some new brutes for you to take down. Keep in mind that the 3DS version does not support online play, so you're going to have to turn to the Wii U if you want to get on the co-op for Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. That, or if you were fortunate enough to find some friends that also have the game so you can play locally. It seems odd to me that Capcom continuously sets up these barriers for entry to a series that really needs all the help it can get over here. But I digress. We're here to see what kind of games Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate breaks down into, so let's get to the first game. If you're not familiar with the general structure of a Monster Hunter game, it can be summarized in 3 easy steps. 1. Prepare in town. 2. Fight the monster. 3. Reap the benefits. It is basically a boss rush mode that we have seen as an unlockable feature in other games, but Monster Hunter feels like a certain game that has a special place in my heart, and that is Shadow of the Colossus. Now I realize that Monster Hunter existed before Shadow of the Colossus, but just hear me out. Shadow of the Colossus took the idea of a boss fight and made it into this grand experience. You know how every game boss has a flashing weak point? Well, Shadow of the Colossus takes this and makes it sexy. The weak points are hidden, and it usually involves you scaling these giant beasts to find glowing weak points. Actually, it always involves you hopping aboard a giant beast, tearing at its hair, and finding the juiciest spot to stick your blade. It's a ballet between a David and a Goliath, and every boss is unique. Monster Hunter adopts the same structure. Every battle between a hunter and a monster is a dance in and of itself, where you have to learn patterns lest you want to get stepped on. On the surface, both games have combat as the driving force, but if you step back and think about it, the boss battles are almost puzzles that you have to decipher by figuring out patterns and movement. Think about it. The hulking beasts in Shadow of the Colossus are all quite different. Some fly, some swim, some are big, some are gigantic. The variety of each colossi makes you as a player approach every fight in a different way. It takes you failing a couple times before you learn when to jump or when to swing that sword. Monster Hunter's beasts are very much the same, in that success is almost determined even before you step out of town. Preparation is such an important part of the hunt. You have to coordinate what to bring for supplies, and not only the type of weapon, but the element of weapon that you want to use. You gotta make sure that the monster is weak against it. In both cases, if you set yourself up for success, it is only a matter of carrying out the finely crafted dance that we talked about earlier. The rest is just theory. Where Shadow of the Colossus imbues the player with a very sparse storyline, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate has no time for such things. The narrative in Shadow of the Colossus was quite simple. Defeat the Colossi to save the girl. But it did something different from any action-adventure game. No towns, no dungeons, no other characters to interact with. It felt weird for this style, but it worked. Monster Hunter does away with the story and replaces it with a single town that you call home. There's no story, and the characters you interact with are nothing more than menus to buy and sell goods. It feels weird for an action RPG to do away with the story, but that's what makes Monster Hunter unique, and something that you couldn't really do in Shadow of the Colossus. So that's enough about giant beasts and memorizing patterns. Let's change gears and take a look at the second game that Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate breaks down into.
It's you and me.
to have you killed your first monster, or you captured it depending on the quest, and you're feeling pretty good. You've collected your body parts and ready to buff the stats on your next weapon or armor so that you can fight the bigger and badder beast. Welcome to Monster Hunter. You're now on the grinding treadmill. Do those characteristics sound familiar to you? Collecting, capturing, grinding? That's right, it's just like Pokemon. The Pokemon games have been around forever, and I'm not going to focus on one in particular, because like Monster Hunter, they're pretty much the same, with some little tweaks here and there. Pokemon has its own variety of monsters, and you kind of hunt them in a sense, since you basically capture them and put them into slavery. But these little pocket monsters are addicting to collect, and that is one of the true hooks that we see in both Monster Hunter and Pokemon. The size difference between the creatures couldn't be greater, but they both share the same driving force of collecting. I don't know what part of the human psyche makes you want to catch them all, or in Monster Hunter's case, kill them all, but when one starts down this path of monster hunting, one does not simply stop. It's been told to me from experts of both games that they're like a treadmill. You get on, you go through the paces, and you keep going over and over. I've put my fair share of time into both titles, but this is a cycle unlike any other game, especially for one that doesn't have a story. It's a common attribute amongst most role-playing games, but there's a level of addiction to both Pokemon and Monster Hunter that reaches unprecedented levels. It's pretty amazing to go generation after generation and pretty much release the same game and switch the monsters every couple years and expect people to invest hundreds of hours into your game. It makes no sense, but it works. They've been doing it for a decade. I don't understand it, but there's something special about monsters that fascinates people to no end. So what's the whole point of this weird grinding cycle? It's all about that min-maxing. You're trying to be the very best, training your Pokemon to become the strongest. The same holds true in Monster Hunter, except that you're improving your weapons and armor. Your equipment defines you. It gives you a role. And that is why the most successful hunters pay careful attention to these details and bring in the big kills. You can see how this all plays into the treadmill I mentioned earlier. You get on, grind it out, and that's how you succeed in these types of games. It takes time and dedication, but this hard work is often the most rewarding and probably why people invest hundreds of hours into either raising or killing monsters in a video game. So there you have it, the breakdown for Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. You have the boss rush style gameplay focusing on battles with immense beasts similar to those in Shadow of the Colossus. And then the grinding nature of the game that we see in RPGs like Pokemon, where you're trying to squeeze every last stat bonus into your character in order to progress. Now there's one thing that would be really awesome in Monster Hunter, and that would be to add Dragon's Dogma as the third ingredient. The asynchronous multiplayer would give you a host of hunters made up of your friends' characters that you could hire and take on your own hunt if you're playing solo or on the 3DS. I know that Monster Hunter has the, feline companions, but that would be cool if you could have an AI-controlled party made up of your friends. They could rank up and gain some of the spoils of the hunt if you so decide them to bring them with you. Since Monster Hunter has such a large emphasis on co-op play, I think it's important that you don't sour your experience by running solo all the time. So it's a way that you get more people playing because they aren't relying on a dedicated team all the time, and they are free to experience Monster Hunter on their own, but with a little help. So that concludes this week's episode of Gaming Alchemy featuring Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Just remember that the magic of Monster Hunter comes when you get into a group of 4, plan out your hunt, prepare yourselves with food and supplies, and embark on what will be a journey of epic proportions. If you like the show, please drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to check out GamingAlchemy.com because we have a ton of content coming out every day. If you have to get a hold of me, the best way is through Twitter, Gaming Alchemy, or Lock Vincent. Send me an email, gamingalchemy@gmail.com. I'm always eager to hear your own breakdown, so let me know what you would break Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate down into. If you have suggestions or a game you want to see on the show, toss me a message, and I'll do my best to get it alchemized. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Happy hunting.